Hey folks, Jeremiah here, trapping today. Yes, I shaved the beard. It was getting a little too scruffly, so I had to clean up a little bit. It's getting to be almost starting to be spring. Maybe in another month and a half here we'll have the snow leave. But today I am shipping off some fur to be tanned. So I wanted to go through the process for those of you who haven't done it before and are not that familiar with how it works and how to do it. Maybe you're a little intimidated by it, or you've thought about sending fur to get tanned and you haven't done it yet. But first I want to talk about the decision to tan. So I wrote a book last year called Fur Profit, A Trapper's Guide to the Modern Fur Market. And you can find that on Amazon, on my site trappingtoday.com, or on a bunch of major trapping supply dealers sell it. And in that book I talked about the various places to market your fur. And you need to be cognizant of all the different markets that are available, and it's really a trapper's responsibility to make the right decision, or try to make the best decision in regards to where you're going to send that fur and how you're going to market it to get the most value. So if you want to, we're in a low fur market. It's a very challenging time as a trapper for most fur bearer species. So in order to get the best value, we got to be thinking about all these different options, different markets and places to sell. So these are some animals that I caught this year on my last winter trap line. Just finished about 2-3 months ago. And I have some marten and some fishers and some weasels. And I was going to send these to auction. So North American Fur Auctions and Fur Harvesters Auctions are the two major auction houses, and the NAFA first auction of the year was the end of February, first few days of March, which was a couple weeks ago. So I waited to send these because I wanted to see what the market was going to do for marten and fisher pelts. It was actually pretty good last year. It wasn't that bad. So I thought there was a chance that that we'd see a little bit of improvement. And also a lot of these marten furs were caught late in the season and the fur was nice and thick and prime. I caught these trapping on snowmobile later on in the year. And a lot of them were December caught. So nice thick prime furs. They're mostly larges, a few mediums, but I thought they would do well in the auction if there was a strong market. The Fur Harvesters auction and the NAFA auction both have been completed now, and the marten prices were actually quite disappointing. So because I held back, I was able to make the decision that now, instead of sending these off to be in another auction in a few months, I'm going to send these to get tanned. Same deal with Fisher. Fisher sold okay in the NAFA auction. I don't think any of them sold in the Fur Harvesters auction, but the prices really weren't that great. So the option to tan, if you get the first tan, it's going to cost more, and it's going to eliminate the opportunity to sell them as raw fur. So you can't send tan fur to the auction. They don't want it. They want to buy it raw and then tan it themselves in the way that they want to tan it. So that takes away that option. So that's one drawback of tanning. The benefit of tanning is that it allows you to sell to a bunch of different local markets that you otherwise probably wouldn't have access to. So if you get these furs tanned, they go from being a perishable item, raw fur, to becoming tanned fur, which will essentially last for a very, very, very long time, almost indefinitely. So what that does is it improves your ability to market these over a longer period of time. And then you can try to sell these at local craft fairs, sportsman's shows, sometimes even small sporting goods shops, possibly some gift shops in different places where tourists go. You'd sell them to other trappers who, maybe I've had trappers who don't have marten in their area, and they would like to buy a marten pelt so they can have one to hang on their wall. So there's a lot of different options there. That's what tanning does. So in order to get these tanned, there's a number of companies that'll do it for you. High quality, high value furs like this, I would not recommend trying to tan them yourself. Maybe some raccoon and beaver would be a good place to learn, but not these guys. So you got to have them professionally done, and it's going to cost money. It's going to cost you to ship the furs to the tannery, then it's going to cost to pay them to have them tanned, and that's going to cost to have them ship the furs back to you. So it significantly adds to the cost of the pelt, and you have to price that in when you're going to sell these. That's why I was at the sporting goods store the other day, and there was a Fisher pelt that was significantly smaller than this one, and didn't look quite as nice, and it had a price tag on it of $150, and that's because of all the costs that are put into this pelt by the time it's hanging up there at the store. So, how do you choose a tannery? There are a number of tanneries across the United States. Some are better than others. Some are bigger. Some are smaller. Sometimes you can find a local tannery that won't be too bad to work with. There are some newer tanneries. The problem with them is a lot of times a new tannery that's starting up and growing, they start to get a good customer base, and it seems to be a common challenge to keep up with demand. So a lot of times you're going to be waiting like 6 months or sometimes a year to get your furs back. That, to me, that's not acceptable if you send a fur to get tanned. So the place I'm sending these furs to is a tannery called Moyle Mink and Tannery. I'll include a link to them in the description of this video. The website is moytown.com. And Moyle Mink, it's a mink ranch in Idaho that's also a large-scale tannery, and they tan a whole wide variety of furs for both taxidermy and for just regular dressing type of furs that we're doing here. So you go to their website, they have specific instructions, and they have a price list. And I want to go over this price list really quick for a few items just to show you what you'd be looking at. For these, so there's a big difference between sending one fur to be tanned and sending a whole pile of them. If you send 1 or 2 furs, it's going to cost quite a bit. The more you send, the easier it is for them to do multiples of your furs in larger quantities, and it makes it cheaper overall because it's less handling for the different types of furs and so on. So we got a Fisher here. All these animals are the same price regardless of the size of the pelt. The same price goes for the entire species. So for Fisher, if I was to send just one of these, it would be $27 to have this tanned, plus the cost to ship it there and to have it shipped back. If I were to take 5 or 6, I actually have 6 Fisher pelts in here. That cost goes down to $20. So it's a pretty significant savings if I'm sending 6 pelts. And there's multiple tiers there, and it just gets more reasonable to have furs tanned per fur the more you do. So you notice I got most of my Fisher furs are dried fur out, and that's because I was going to send them to the auction, which wants them fur out. This is one that I caught with my boys here on the farm, and so we never intended to send this to auction anyway. It was always going to get tanned, and I left it fur in. It really doesn't matter to the tannery, but I believe when they get them, they ended up wetting them down and turning them fur in anyway, so this kind of just makes it so they don't have to handle it as much and less chance of something going wrong maybe. The marten, I have a large number of marten. They're kind of on the small side, but the marten price is $17 to tan a marten. If you go between 2 and 5 marten, it goes down to $15, and I'm sending a dozen, and the price for 6 to 20 marten skins is $12 a piece. So we save $5 a marten by sending a larger quantity. So that's another good thing. And then I have just a couple of weasels that I threw in here, and these are really kind of just an add-on. I figured I'm shipping the box anyway, so I might as well send the weasels. There are 2 of them that are kind of special to me, and my oldest boy caught this. This was his first weasel. We were out trapping, and then my youngest boy was along with me when we caught this. He's 3 years old. So these 2 are going to be tanned, and I'm gonna give it one. Each of them is going to have their own weasel that they're going to hang up in the room or do whatever they want with them. Now, one thing I did, and we'll see how Moyle handles this. I hope they I hope they keep these on. So all my furs that require tags have tags on them. Weasels don't require tags, but I put some zip ties. I put a red colored little zip tie on this large weasel pelt and a green colored zip tie on the smaller one. So I know these two are the ones for my boys. And typically the tannery will leave stuff like that on. And so when I get them back, I'll know which ones are which. These four are just weasels I caught while I was trapping marten and fisher. And basically what I figured was if I ship 2 weasels, they're $11.25 a piece to tan. If I ship 6, they're $10. So basically I'm going to save a little bit of money. I'm going to tan these, and who knows, maybe I'll find a place to sell them. Alright, so we got marten, fisher, and weasel. Anything that's required to have a tag has to have a tag. Moyle doesn't mess around. They're a big company. They don't need to be getting in trouble with legal issues, so you're responsible. So anything that requires a tag for your state, you're responsible for maintaining the tag there. And this tag stays on during tanning. They don't take this off. The only ones they take off are special cases where they're tanning for taxidermy purposes and they don't want to mess up the eye hole. So these tags all stay on to these species. I actually made up a list of my tags, my tag numbers that I'm going to include with the paperwork just to be sure, but it's going to be pretty self-explanatory, and they keep good records here. So you find a box. Another part of this process is finding a box that's going to fit your furs. This box is the longest one I could find that's a reasonable dimension, and I'm going to tuck these fisher tails in. They can be bent a little bit, not going to be a big deal. When they come back, they're all going to be nice and soft. So as long as we don't rip anything, they'll be alright. You don't need to pad the box very much because the fur makes quite a cushion. It takes a lot of space, but it doesn't weigh a lot. I'll get this over to the post office. In fact, I've got a scale here. I may even weigh it up and get a cost estimate and print off a shipping label right here. So I don't know what this is going to cost. I'm guessing around $20 to send this off. With that many pelts, it's really not a bad deal. On Moyle's website for paperwork, they have an order form that you fill in, and it's very simple. It's just the species that you're sending, the quantity, and whether it's going to be for taxidermy or for dressing, because they need to know the difference, and then your name and address, phone number, email address, so that they can get in touch with you when it's time to bill you for your fur. So basically, you send the fur, they tan it over the course of typically 2 months, and then they'll send you a bill before they ship it back to you. The other thing here is if you really need to have it fast, you can check the option for 40-day service. So that means they will get that back to you in 40 days. The thing with that is it costs an extra 50%, so make sure you really need that back quick. I had a friend that just sent some furs in. I don't believe he spent the extra money, and they did have it in just over 40 days anyway. So sometimes it depends on whether they're doing a batch of that particular species at the time. Say they're doing marten and you send marten right before they're getting ready to do a batch of marten, and yours go in the batch. Then it's quicker. If not, they may wait until they get enough to do another batch. And then very important thing on the back side of this form, it's actually a downloadable PDF, and they'll give you 2 sheets to put your species and quantities on, and then the third sheet is a compliance statement. And what this is telling Moyle that as far as you know, these were legally trapped animals and you're responsible for them. If they need to be tagged, you tagged them. You give them your name, your signature, and the date. Also, they want to have a trapping license number. You can include a taxidermy license, trapper license, fur buyer, hunter license, or tribal ID. So there's a wide variety there, but they want to know the license number there in case there's any issues with legality. It's just another way to cover yourself and to make sure that everything's on the up and up. So that's pretty simple. You include that paperwork. I'm actually going to have an envelope here. I'm going to put all this paperwork in it, and I'm going to put Moyle paperwork, include it right there with the furs, ship that off, and probably in a couple months I'll get contacted by Moyle. I'll give them my credit card information. You can also write them a check if you're a long established customer, but I'll just give them a credit card. They'll bill me and the furs will head my way, and then I can decide what to do with them. I can leave them in storage for as long as I want. I can try to sell a few here and there. Actually, if you're interested in a marten or fisher pelt, you can comment in the video, let me know, because I have I think 3 of them already sold when I get them back from the tannery. So there's some people that are interested in having some just as wall hangers. So anyway, just another option, and I hope that if you're interested in sending your fur out to get tan, that this was helpful. Take care. We'll see you in the next video.